Yesterday, a story broke, which spread like wildfire, partially because it was not like it fit the vibe. It fit the vibe. And that was the story that NCSoft's Horizon MMO had been reportedly canceled. This was coming out of an article from the South Korean website MTN, where they mentioned that there's been a handful, 3 projects specifically at NCSoft that were canceled, specifically Project Pantera, Project H, and Project J that they were working on. And this is because NCSoft is in like a really bad financial spot. They're really struggling right now. So they're canceling a ton of stuff, reorganizing, and they're trying to figure out like what the hell to do because they're hemorrhaging money. And one of the lines from like one of their senior executives was NCSoft said if they have one more big, he didn't say flop, but disappointment, I think is what he said, that there might not be a future for NCSoft. Like the whole company might go under. That's how on the line they are. So he said all of this, but the interesting tidbit is that it has now been updated with a note. Shout out Tom Henderson for the update. According to the author of the MTN article, Project H is not the Horizon MMO, which people were kind of taking with it. According to the report, both Project J and H were canceled at the beginning of the year, with its developers being notified that they've been moving to different teams across the company. This was after, all of this other stuff happened, and they also wanted to stress that it shouldn't be confused with the Horizon Monster Hunter kind of spin-off looking game that looks like Fortnite. That is coming from Guerrilla, and that is still very much in the works and probably coming at some point this year. So what's interesting about this, though, is that they're clarifying that Project H is not the Horizon MMO. Therefore, it still is in development at NCSoft. So there we're at. The reason this spread so quickly, though, is that apparently it fit the sort of, I don't know, vibe within the zeitgeist of the gaming industry. Everybody has been talking about Sony pivoting off of the live service stuff, pivoting off of the push for multiplayer easy cash money that they've been obsessed with. And I mean, that's part of the reason why this story spread, is because it was following the announcement that 2 other projects were canceled that were disasters in their own right. And so I think that that's why this seemed so believable, but apparently it's still in the works. Does that mean it ever sees the light of day? That I'm still not convinced of, because I mean, we meme on Horizon all the time. Okay. Like, you guys know, we joke about it. We tease Joe Raptor for it. Like, we joke and poke and prod. I think the games are fine. Dare I say even pretty good. But does that mean, therefore, that we should greenlight 15 spin-offs, a movie, a TV show, a series of merchandise with specialized earrings and shoes and stockings? Like, no, I just don't think it's there yet. And I think the more you try to make it a thing, the less cool and the less earned it feels. And part of it is that, like, the games industry, the people that are familiar with the inner workings of it at least, are among the most frustrated by Sony's recent direction, what they've been doing. And as a result, they also blame a lot of it on Herman Hulst and Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan retired last year, and so he's gone. The new co-CEO is a guy from Japan, from the corporate office, and then Herman Hulst. Herman started at Guerrilla and then climbed the ranks to be like the overseer of PlayStation Studios, and then he got promoted to like co-CEO of PlayStation after Jim Ryan retired and left. And so he has steadily failed upwards, but either way, he has been with the company in a position of leadership, senior leadership, as they've greenlit all of these massive projects, all of these massive expenditures, and they have been categorical disasters, without a doubt. Like, there is no debate over it. You have Helldivers 2, which was successful. That did well. What other live service successes have they had? I'm struggling to think of one. But they've greenlit a dozen of them, and they've just been hemorrhaging money as a result of it. And this is unmitigated. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. I was like, unmitigated, categorical. I don't know. But it seems that they are starting to shift away. They canceled, of course, the Sony Bend live service game, which was the team behind Days Gone. And then they also canceled the project from Bluepoint, which was a God of War spin-off live service game, which is asinine in its own right. And so now we're left with this. Now we're left with the Horizon multiplayer game, the Horizon MMO. We've got Marathon, we've got Fair Game $, and I think one more that I can't remember. It's really remarkable because I mean, with the Horizon stuff too, maybe I'm in a bubble. Okay, I want to be fair if I'm just in a bubble. But I don't know a single person who is like, I really would love Horizon, but as an MMO. Like, MMOs are so freaking expensive to make. They're so difficult to balance. They're so difficult to find players for, that I think the thought was, well, we'll put it in the Horizon universe, and all of our Horizon players will start playing the MMO. Boom. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because I think a lot of the Horizon players, the core player base, like the single player game. They like the narrative stuff. They like the bigger set pieces and that sort of tailored experience. I'm not sure if those players are the types to spend 1,000 hours in an MMO. Like, I just don't think that there's that much crossover. And then with the Horizon multiplayer game, that one is more questionable because we just don't know really the direction. It sounds like Monster Hunter, but in the world of Horizon and with a Fortnite coat of paint. And they're going to have some narrative elements, but it's not going to be Aloy. It's going to be like make your own hunter kind of thing. And maybe that finds success, but my expectation for a couple of years at this point, since this started getting rumored, was if you want to play a game where you hunt monsters with your friends, you're probably going to play Monster Hunter. Especially if the year that these games are releasing features the biggest and most ambitious Monster Hunter game of all time, like Monster Hunter Wilds. So I would imagine if you like those types of games, you're just going to play the real deal. You know, it's like if you release, like, you remember those old rip-off movies of like Finding Nemo, Finding Jesus. Yeah. Like, why would you go watch this when you could just go watch actual Finding Nemo, you know? Like, why would you play the spin-off? And rip-off is a strong word for what Horizon seems to be doing. I want to be clear about that, because like Horizon, Guerrilla seems to be doing an actual, like, from the ground up, massive project. They've had hundreds and hundreds of developers working on it for years and years and years. And they're trying to create something more dynamic and I think just something very different from Horizon. So it's not fair to just be like, it's a Monster Hunter ripoff. But I think the comparisons will be inevitable. And I think that the player bases are also going to be overlapped a lot. At least that's the goal, I think, is to have those player bases hopefully overlap and get both of them. And I think that's just been the weird assumption from Sony this whole generation, has been that if we have fans of our single player games, so let's say you love The Last of Us, if we make a Last of Us multiplayer game that we can monetize a lot, all of those people will move over and play it and give us lots of money for it. And it will also make them happy because they're getting more of that franchise they like. And I think that that is just not the case. You know, like, I think that there's a lot of people who like Horizon for the single player games, but they aren't going to necessarily spill over into an MMO because that's a totally different thing. MMO players are a different breed, you know, like it's not the same kind of thing. If I love single player narrative games, or if you're somebody that likes indie games that are 8-bit platformers or something, even if you take the like Animal Well IP and you turn it into a third person adventure MMO, I don't know how many of those original fans are going to move over. Probably not that many, because it's just a different thing. And yeah, you could say with The Last of Us, there's the factions example, which obviously is like a staple of the original game. But this live service multiplayer game, I think, was going to be like its own animal. It was going to be a totally different thing, which who knows what that would have looked like. The gameplay, like concept art and stuff looked interesting at least. So who knows, but we'll see. It's very interesting, but it seems like NCSoft is still working on the game. We'll see what that looks like. But this is also something I would imagine that the spinoff probably, I don't think they would launch an MMO and the Monster Hunter spinoff thing in the same year. So the MMO would have to be next year and or later. I mean, it might be 2027 or 2028. They launch it next to the movie they just announced or something. Who knows? But it's just, it's really, really bizarre to see how Sony has doubled down on it so much, even though the performance of Horizon as a franchise hasn't really met that same level. That's been the really surprising thing, is that Horizon Forbidden West didn't outsell the original, which you would hope that your sequel outsells and outperforms the original, or at the very least, like, is on pace with it and is growing the franchise and growing the brand, but it didn't. And part of it is because it launched on PS5, sure, but it was also on PS4, and then the DLC was the exclusive thing to next gen. So it's just a franchise that I don't think is as big or as universally praised and beloved as Sony acts like it is, which is weird. But yeah, feels like they're pushing it to no one. I mean, there are people that love it. Don't get me wrong. There's people that really like Horizon and eat it up, but I just don't think it's anywhere near as many people as they think it is. And I think they realized with like the Lego Horizon game, there weren't that many people that were willing to just spend a ton of money on this thing for the sake of supporting Horizon. Same with that Horizon VR game. Like, you remember the meltdown some people had when that Horizon VR game came out and it got like really middling reviews, and people were like, it's not great, it's fine. You know, it broke people's brains. But I think that that's just, Horizon feels like one of those games that's built in a very intentional effort to make it the flagship game for an entire company, even though I feel like that's something that should happen more dynamically and more, or rather not dynamically, more organically. I feel like it should just occur, you know? He took my thing.